Galimera, Galimera, Galimera. Good morning, good morning, good morning. As you can see, I'm joined on the balcony this morning by the two cockerels. The chickens have already been, left a bit of a mess. Reason for the late broadcast this morning, simply we had a power cut, and the power cut is now obviously ended. The weather at the moment, we had rain obviously last night. We've still got grim looking clouds above. Kind of reflects my feelings at the moment with the grim clouds. Waiting to see what weather forecast Amanda comes up with, but at the moment, yeah, grim clouds looking down towards Amber Lockerbie and also Pantocrator, and also Kerry direction as well. So at the moment, yeah, pretty grim clouds. We've had rain, as I've already said. Can I just say thank you to all those people who've been sending me either public or private messages about my sort of late broadcast yesterday, reference the planned vaccination of all tourism workers, which in my eyes I see as forcible vaccination, simply because we're not, sounds of it from the edict that came out, we're not given a choice whether we want it or not. And knowing the way things work in this country, if you don't have it, you will not be able to work, and pressure will be brought to bear on the employers that they're basically going to police this. And if you run a business or whatever, you'll be expected to check your staff to make sure they're either vaccinated or they take the tests. That's already started this week. And for me, it's a slippery slope. That's the way I see it, of basically liberties being infringed. I noticed that the NHS tried to forcibly vaccinate its nursing staff and people like that, and under the eyes of UK law they weren't allowed to do it, although there might be a clause when it comes to renewal of contracts where they will put it into the clause of the renewal of a contract, a working contract, that their staff have to be vaccinated before they can start working on the wards again. So again, it seems to be happening everywhere. Thank you to those people from other countries who've been in touch as well, who said they're kind of feeling the same sense that people's personal liberty to choose whether they want to put something in their body or not is being taken away, and being put into a position where if you don't do as you're told, then obviously you can't work and you can't function. So basically, it's something that decisions have got to be made by the individual and also by the collective as well. I'm interested to see what some of the political parties here in Greece are going to feel towards this edict that has come out. But anyway, let's just quickly switch the camera around and just crack on with the news from today. As you know, it is now the 20th of April. It's Tuesday. We've been now 165 days in lockdown. New infections at the moment across Greece, they are going down. Yesterday it was 1,829. Today I can report to you 1,607 new infections recorded across the country. Grand total since it started, 316,879. Now for infections, entries into the country, that is up. Yesterday I reported you 3. That has gone up to 7. However, when it comes to the national stats about infections across the country, there were 2 new infections in Lefkada, no new cases in Kefalonia, 10 cases reported in Corfu. Zakynthos reported 2 cases on the national stats. However, locally, yesterday, it's reported that there were 3 infections recorded locally here on Zakynthos. None of them have ended up with anybody being admitted to the hospital, which is good. And this makes the 4th consecutive day that we've had between 2 to 3 cases. So things look like that they're sort of stabilising out, and hopefully the numbers are going to go down even less to that, which is a good thing at the moment. So at the moment, that brings our total up to 503 cases since the beginning of the year. And for this month, that brings us up to 140 cases for the month of April. So again, we'll see where that leads. As for deaths at the moment, unfortunately, deaths across Greece, that has risen. That is from 65 on my last report up to 78. Again, that makes the grand total of deaths 9,540. The average age of those people passing away is 79 years of age. 96.4% had underlying health problems or were over the age of 70. Zakynthos, we've had no deaths at the moment. Our death toll since the beginning of the pandemic last year has been 7. As for critical cases, they're also up at the moment across Greece. Yesterday I did report it was 841 critical cases. At the moment it is now up to 847. 526 are male, 321 are female, and the amount of beds that Greece has that can deal with critical patients is 900. So again, there is a cause of concern over critical cases, that they are up slightly from before. The average age of those people in critical cases is 68 years of age. 83.5% of those have underlying health conditions or are over the age of 70. Once again, we hope that those people get better. As for Zakynthos at the moment, we still have 4 people in incubation and 9 people in the COVID clinic who are undergoing, shall we say, observation, and hopefully those people will go home, as well as the people in the ICUs will get better and obviously leave hospital. But again, at the moment, no change there. Anyway, as of today's news then, from Monday, the Greek government imposed mandatory COVID-19 testing for employees in supermarkets, food distribution services, the retail sector, hairdressers, banks, finance and insurance services, public transport, cleaning services and a wide range of government employees. Anyway, the self-test should be performed once a week at the beginning of each week prior to arriving at the workplace with a valid, which is valid then for 7 days. Employers are expected to confirm the compliance of their staff. This next week is seen as an introductory period. However, from next Monday, the compliance of rules by employers will incur hefty fines. So this is what I'm saying about employers now are being given the responsibility to see that their employees at the moment are self-testing. And again, no word as to how this is to be carried out, whether health department will just go into businesses and randomly check the employees as they go into businesses. It also makes you wonder about the chance of false positives as well that may occur from tests being carried out as well on a random basis. But anyway, this is like the beginning, I would say, of the slippery slope at the moment. You test yourself. You then obviously put your details onto the computer. You then go into work, and obviously as long as you've tested negative, then you can obviously go to work. But if you test positive, employers then will have to find somebody to fill their slot. You might be in a job where to find people to do that particular skill might be difficult. And then again, what is the knock-on effect to everybody else working within that business as well, as to whether there's going to be an issue about them obviously being able to continue working. And this might be the route that is going to be used to basically say you will all have the vaccine if you want to work. But anyway, we'll wait and see what is said. I'm just going to reiterate yesterday's announcement where I did that broadcast yesterday. Greece's tourism minister, Mr. Thriakis, on Monday announced that government plans to vaccinate 280,000 tourism sector workers against coronavirus as soon as vulnerable people have been vaccinated. He also said, along with plans to vaccinate he says he's also got plans to vaccinate the inhabitants of islands with a population under 10,000, and this is part of Greece's roadmap towards safe tourism this summer. Now, I've already been speaking to one person on a very small island, I'm not going to say where it is, who have already told me that yes, it's already happening, the vaccinations are happening, although at the moment it's voluntary whether you want to get vaccinated or not. No undue pressure is being put on people to have the vaccination or not at the moment, but again, maybe people don't fully realise the implications of this at the moment. So this vaccination of islands with less than 10,000 people is already at the moment going on. Anyway, tourism worker vaccination schedule depends on the distribution timeline. Thriakis outlined the plan for tourism worker vaccinations in Parliament on Monday. He highlighted that vulnerable people would continue to be prioritised, which I don't see a problem with that, but tourism workers would be next to be vaccinated. Again, no mention whether it is compulsory or whether it is voluntary. Again, it should be your choice. Anyway, tourism workers' vaccinations depend on how quickly the vulnerable people in their areas are inoculated. Thriakis stressed that there will also be self-tests available for tourism workers while they await their coronavirus vaccinations. Well, if you're already getting people to self-test now at the moment, why is it that self-testing cannot continue and be another alternative choice for those people that don't want to take the vaccination? Again, I'm waiting to hear if any other political parties, any other workers' unions, any other groups within Greece are going to raise that question and say, will the option be there to self-test instead of taking the vaccine as well? So again, maybe it's early days at the moment for the finalising of this to be sorted out, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on this as well. Anyway, it also says once the vaccination of tourism workers begins, it will be relatively a quick and easy 3-week process. The Greek tourism minister says the whole country is safe. Well, the whole country is safe, to be quite honest, before he even says that. Part of the plan for summer tourism is to project the message that the whole country is safe for tourists. Thriakis warned against promoting Pacific areas as islands as COVID-free, which I can understand that completely, as he claims this is not a sound tourism strategy. And I agree with him 100% that if you try and stick the completely COVID-free notice on the door, you're opening a world of, shall we say, litigation and problems if something does happen. And again, it doesn't promote a good image at one island pitted against another as well, which is something that I don't want to see. It's Greece as a whole, not as little bits of Greece. Anyway, he also said tourism could be threatened for several reasons if the narrative of COVID-free area is pushed as well. Anyway, the government solution is to promote the whole country as being safe for tourists to arrive this summer. However, there are certain islands that the government is planning on fully vaccinating before the tourism season, with every single adult resident being inoculated. A total of 85 islands with populations under 10,000 will see all of their residents fully vaccinated as part of Operation Freedom. Now, you could actually look at that as it's easier to inoculate everybody in one go on these small islands rather than having to go backwards and forwards. And I could understand that. But I think it's just the way that they're kind of phrasing it as this is all, you know, part of a grand scheme. Be honest, just say it's easier to organise a mass vaccination of people in one go than what it is to basically big it up by making out that you are basically doing something above and beyond. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a logistical thing rather than a promotion thing. The country already, if you think about it, has a good reputation with everybody else within Europe. We've had the lowest death rate, we've had the lowest rate of infection, and we've actually erred on the side of caution. Greece put itself into red, or parts of Greece into red, while the country is overall seen as being green in the actual COVID infection map. Because obviously we want tourism to occur. So Greece did err on the side of caution. We are still locked down now at the moment, 163 days. And to be honest, Greece has done well in vaccinating what it can, despite the restrictions it's had placed on it by the inadequacies of the EU in the first place, who were taking away vaccine for countries because it wanted to step in and run the whole show, which it has done very, very badly. Anyway, It was also said that these islands that are being vaccinated traditionally lure tourists from all over the world to Greece, and the campaign in an important effort to bolster one of the most important economic sectors in Greece. So basically, they want tourism to happen. They've also said that the intake of vaccine doses to Greece in May and June from both Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer had been planned to contribute significantly to the implementation of this ambitious rollout, but the EU has now paused the distribution of the J&J, the Johnson & Johnson product, due to health concerns. The US Drug Regulatory Authority, the FDA, and the EU's European Medicines Agency have both paused their use of Johnson & Johnson vaccine until further testing and research by the FDA can affirm the safety of the inoculations. And also, they said, so far, after a total of almost 7 million people have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, 6 instances of thrombosis and 1 death have been reported as being associated with the inoculations. And reports say that the number of vaccine doses to be received in Greece from Pfizer Biotech alone will add up to 1,500,000 for the next 2 months. Some of these doses will be earmarked for the tourism workers to make sure visitors have a safe and memorable summer in Greece. Now, I've got to be honest, that rhetoric has been taken from the government news sources, and of course they are not going to basically play down the negative side of what they're trying to do. But I'm just hoping that political parties here, Syriza and also even the Communist Party, may actually turn around and question the motives behind the role of this, and whether there will be free choice or not in whether you have the vaccine, and other alternatives can be given in weekly testing for people. And also somebody raised a good point on some of my comments, the fact that people have been here quite happily doing things on the island, never once become ill, never became ill. Last year we had no vaccine, and nobody became ill from the tourists coming across here from the UK, and all the hysteria and all the hype reference tourists bringing the plague with them didn't materialise. And in fact, if anything, it's only after the tourists had all gone and they'd left for a while that we started to see the disease coming in via people themselves here in Greece, bringing it from Attica, from Thessaloniki, from outside. And it's still the same way. It's been spread between ourselves rather than coming in from outside. So again, we'll wait and see what transpires. We're going to see how much the government is going to push tourism workers actually having to have the vaccine. And thank you once again to those people who messaged me privately yesterday, who didn't want to say too much in public about their feelings of it, and those people who have publicly put comments on my Facebook pages around various locations as to their feelings about this enforced inoculation of tourism sector workers. But again, we'll keep a lookout. Now, the interesting thing is the next article that I saw yesterday was another one. The Greek government was eager to fully open up the economic activity. It's working to accelerate vaccinations to help develop so-called herd immunity against the coronavirus sooner rather than later. To ensure greater participation in the vaccination drive, the government must convince people that the vaccinations are safe, despite recent concerns about the products of AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson. Now, the economy has been suffocating under the variable lockdown conditions, and the state coffers now are getting thinner. The Greek finance ministry wants the latest aid package of €3 billion to prop up struggling businesses to be the last, having already exceeded budget projections. A positive development is that there is now data showing that vaccinations are working, even though incubations are still breaking record highs, and they are on the decline over the over 75s, a great part of whom have completed their 2 jabs. Now, incubations are still rising steeply for those aged between 65 to 74, but vaccinations for this age group have only begun recently, on March the 26th for those 70 to 74, and on April the 2nd for 65 to 69 age group. There is also a slight upward trend for those under 60 who have not started vaccinations yet. The same trends are evident in the number of hospitalizations and deaths. At the office of the Prime Minister, Mitsotakis, there is guarded optimism after many difficult weeks that the number of new cases will begin to gradually decline, followed by a drop in hospitalizations and incubations, easing pressure on the public health system. Officials are also satisfied that the relaxation of restrictions in the retail has not led to a rise in the viral load. However, there is another test coming up in the middle of the week, the effect of the opening of high schools the previous Monday, with students having to produce self-test results to be able to attend. So again, we're waiting to see what the results of that will yield this week, and maybe that might even decide whether we start to come out of our lockdown here on the islands and also around the rest of the country. Anyway, it was also said that while the reopening of the economy will be careful, the government is betting that the tourism season, which is so much of the economy depends on, will open as planned on May the 14th. Now, the progress of the pandemic will also affect whether residents will be allowed to make the customary trip to their ancestral villages to celebrate Easter. And also, just to remind you that the Orthodox Easter falls on Monday the 2nd. Falls on May the 2nd this year, and the final decision about whether people are going to be able to go to their villages, that is expected to be announced on Friday. Because when you think about it, as of Friday, it's a week to go until Easter, Greek Easter, then occurs. So again, we shall watch and wait and see what happens there. Now, there was also another message as well that came out yesterday about a joint ministerial decision to trial tourist entry into Greece. Now, that's going to start on Monday with border checkpoints in Nefani and Protomakos being open to tourists. So now they're bringing tourists into the country and they can enter, but they must display negative PCR tests conducted within 3 days of their attempt to enter, as well as undergo a rapid test administered by Greek health authorities at the border. Anyway, prior to this pilot program, the checkpoints have been shut for months, and the only people allowed to cross those borders were obviously truck drivers delivering supplies into the country and obviously exiting the country to collect more. Anyway, Thiassis Tionis, the Deputy Tourism Regional Governor of the Eastern Macedonia and Thrace, stressed what is taking place here and for the period until May the 14th is a crash test for when the tourism industry is expected to open in its totality. On April the 26th, when a new joint ministerial decision will be published, we will be able to know all the data collected during the week. Anyway, weekly checks will ensure that the checkpoints will operate securely and that citizens of the region will remain safe despite the opening to tourists. All European citizens, as well as tourists from the United Kingdom, the United States, Serbia, United Arab Emirates and Israel will be allowed to cross at the borders. So if you're basically from the UK, I know somebody in Northern Ireland at the moment will probably rubbing his hands with glee in that you can now drive over and drive through the border there to come into the country as long as you have your PCR test 72 hours before you attempt to cross the border. and expect to be tested once you have crossed the border, because there had been cases through the winter where people were bringing forged PCR test forms as well over, trying to get through basically by having a forged certificate. But anyway, that's by the way. We shall keep an eye on that. Anyway, another story that is not related to COVID. A very sad story yesterday of a 76-year-old father who's been arrested by police after he went to the police and told them that he had shot and killed his son during a fight at their home in the eastern Attica district of Corpi on Monday. According to reports, the incident took place shortly after 10 a.m. during an argument that the man had with his 48-year-old son over his alleged addiction to alcohol. After the fatality shooting, his son, after fatally shooting his son, the father reportedly called the police and said, "Come over, I've killed my son." At the moment, there is an investigation going on at the moment, and again, we will see what transpires in that investigation. Anyway, you're probably looking for a little bit of happy news, and yes, I do have some happy news. The Greek Frappe, it seems, has become an absolute media storm over South Korea. I love a Frappe coffee. There's nothing better than a Frappe coffee. But believe it or not, Korea has now, South Korea, not North Korea, South Korea has actually discovered the joys of the Frappe coffee. And they have actually taken to it because of the lockdown they had in their country. A famous Korean film star basically was served a frappe, liked it so much, he put something up online, creating the hashtag Dalgola coffee making challenge. Dalgola is the name of, this is the name the Koreans have decided to call a frappe, Dalgola, because when this film star drank the coffee, he said it tasted like a Korean honey, which is called Dalgola. So that's how in Korea now you call a frappe a Dalgola. Anyway, it seems it's gone absolutely viral. TikTok has also pushed it as well. So now South Korea is now drinking frappe coffees, and as we always love a frappe coffee in the summer, I must admit I don't drink alcohol at all in the summer when I'm working. I just drink frappes. That's my alcohol. People are amazed at how many frappes I drink, either in the night or in the day. But for me, I love a frappe, and I always look at the weather, and if it's a day for frappe, I'll have a frappe. If it's like today, it's more of a normal Greek coffee Medrio day today, a Clinico today, I think, rather than a frappe. But anyway, that is the news so far. Let's have a quick look at who's tuning in at the moment, what people's comments are about what's been going on. Alfling is watching. Nice to have you tuning in as well. Chris Clark is watching as well. Julie Meldrum is also tuning in. Shane Bowen up there on Exmoor's tuning in. Emma Marku is also watching in. Paul Fleming is watching as well. Jeanette Cooney is watching. Raina Pete Dillon is also watching as well. Lindsay Lamb is also watching. Nice to see you looking in, Lindsay. Steve Brown is watching. Not sure if that's Raf Reg Steve Brown. There's quite a few Steve Browns I know, but nice to see you tuning in. John Bailey says, "Morning, buddy." Also, Catherine Ling is also tuning in from the island. Gail Marsden is tuning in as well. Wiggy Winstanley over there in Cyprus is tuning in, the ambassador for Wigan over there. I'm going to give you a call, Wiggy, because I haven't heard from you in a week, and I'm just making sure that you're all right. And I'm also producing my Northern Soul show for this Sunday. I'll be doing that today as well, so I could do with a little bit of your input, fella. It's always nice to have you that. Kev Carhill is also watching as well. Wiggy says, good morning, Brother Rock. Nice to see you, fella. Julie Stewart is watching. Gail Marsden says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you as well, Gail. John Atherton is also tuning in. Delia Gutsetti is also watching in. Andrew the Fridge Watkins is tuning in as well from Wales. Susie Angus is also tuning in as well. Shane Bowen is obviously watching. He says, cock-a-doodle-doo. Yeah, bloody right, and all the noise the buggers will be making and all. Mike Glattonley is also tuning in. Nice to have you looking in as well, big fella. Will Bland is watching as well. Patsy Ann Dobson says, good morning, Ginge. Misty here in Margate at the moment. Hopefully will brighten up. You and Jane are, hopefully it will brighten up and you and Jane are well. Yes, thank you, Patsy. And also just to let you know, I didn't know if I told you this yesterday, Patsy. The Fez is still going to open, but they're not going to open until June. And Phil, that's the owner of the bar, he's managed to survive. He says, I've managed to hang on, Ginge. I've managed to hang on. And he's done the right thing by his staff as well. And they're looking forward to opening in June, unless, of course, they pedestrianise outside of his... that's the point. Matt Hancock is supposed to have been in court, but at the moment, still not heard back as to what the outcome of the court case, where he had to justify why businesses and shops and that don't have an outdoor access were still forced to close. And it was great yesterday seeing Keir Starmer being thrown out of a pub by an irate landlord who basically confronted him and said that as a member of the opposition, he'd done an absolutely rubbish job in trying to protect businesses, trying to protect the economy of the country. He started pulling out all these stats and stuff like that. Keir Starmer couldn't answer any of his questions. And also I noticed Keir Starmer wasn't wearing a mask at one point as well, but that's by the by. Yeah, all his people around him were wearing masks, probably so they weren't able to be identified. And the sound of this landlord shouting at Keir Starmer, get out of my pub, I don't want you in my pub, was an absolute joy. Because do you know what? Keir Starmer, for all his supposed analytical mind and all the great hopes that he had of usurping the popularity of Jeremy Corbyn, it just hasn't come. I think as an opposition politician in the British Parliament, he's been absolutely poor. He has not, he's basically just rubber stamped everything that Boris wanted to put through, did not question anything. And basically, if you go on YouTube, find Keir Starmer being evicted by the pub landlord. Absolutely brilliant. I want to take my hat off to that pub landlord. He never swore at him. He just put up a very, very good argument for what he'd done. But Keir Starmer, and his wording was, I'm not going to be lectured in the street by the likes of you. And that to me is, he is one of your voters. This landlord was a long-term Labour supporter. And basically, Keir, you are a servant of the people. You are elected into your job. You are there to do the bidding of the people that elected you, not the donors that are probably paying you through the back door for contracts, tenders, bids on this, bids on that. And your influence as head of the Labour Party has a big bearing on how people want to do business. And so therefore, I think, Keir Starmer, your days of head of the Labour Party are over. I feel that the Tory Party and the Labour Party as two political parties are basically kind of dead in the water at the moment. What's going to happen with the Liberal Democrats when the days of the likes of Paddy Ashdown ran the Liberal Democrats and they were a credible party? Even they are at the moment in a disarray. So again, what is going to happen? Luckily, there's no election on the horizon at the moment because that's a decision everybody is at the moment just wanting to get back to work, get themselves sorted and then worry about who's running the country. But again, I think we're going to see a massive reshuffle in British politics at the moment as to what will happen in the way ahead. But anyway, go and check it out. Go check online. Keir Starmer being evicted from a pub. Absolutely brilliant to watch, and well done to that. Oh, and by the way, the pub was in Bath, all right, before I forget. Well done to Bath. I'm not sure what the name of the pub was, but if you know the man, give him a pat on the back and say, well done, fella. Anyway, Alan Woodhouse is watching as well. Tallulah Leon Cossetti, nice to have you tuning in. Old Tula there, nice to see you. Amanda Gregory is watching as well. Oh, the weather forecast, thank God for that. Good morning, Ginge. Rain early this morning. Yeah, and it was raining a little bit just too long ago as well. Cloudy with some sunshine, showers though through the day. Highs of 17 will feel like 20. Have a good day. So there you go. I thought we might have a bit more rain on the way. Christine Brown is watching. Nice to see you there looking in. Mary Pickard is watching. Tony Roberts is also watching as well. Gary Hipswell is watching. Also, Graham Chisholm is also tuning in. Nice to see you there, Mr. Iggy. I hope everything's good with you. Ian Booth is also watching as well. Andrew Johnson is watching. Christine Brown is watching as well. Morning, she says. Angela Love is watching. Booth is tuning in. I hope you're feeling a lot better, Boothie, after your little operation. Nice to have you tuning in as well. Heather Nash is watching. She says, morning to you and Jane from sunny Birmingham. Oh, they've got sun in Birmingham. Can you believe that? Wendy Norcliffe is watching. Julie White says, well said. We said this all along. No cases when we visited last year. Let's hope they bring the test prices down too. Yeah, that's a really good point, because at the end of the day, our tourism is going to depend. The fact is that Greece has already said, if you've had the vaccination, you can come, as long as you bring your certificate or whatever it is that they give you. And thank you for those people who are sending me pictures of their little certificate or their little piece of paper. Somebody said to me, oh, you could easily forge this, Ginge, on a Fisher-Price printing set. But anyway, I've got it now. It means I can come to Greece and I don't have to have a test before I go, which is great, which is what Greece has said all along. If you test negative 72 hours before you come, you can still come. If you've had the vaccination, you don't need to test and you can come on the strength of your vaccination. So again, we're open for business and we're wanting people to come. So again, it's all up to, the reason is this, 15 euros for a test, a PCR test in France, £120 in the UK. Why? Why is that Boots charging 120 quid, 15 quid in France? Money's being made, no two ways about it. Tourists are already coming into Britain on holiday, but you as a British citizen, you can't leave the country without a fear of a €5,000 fine or £5,000 fine if you cannot justify your reason for going out of the country. Why? Absolute madness. So anyway, we'll good point. Please write to your local MP. I hate to say this. Write to your local MP. The first letter you'll get back will be a cut and paste standard letter. Write a second time, you will get a proper reply from your MP, and remind your MP that you're the people that voted for them in the first place. They work for you, all right? It's not you work for them, all right? You work for them, all right? You work, they work for you. Confused myself there. Okay, so you tell them that and you say, I am not happy with the fact that the cost of, they were giving away tests for God's sake at one point. Why are the cost of tests so high? Those tests probably in the ream of things were just a few pence or even a quid for it to be produced and made. And then obviously people are bunging their profit on top because they want to go and sell them. All right. So anyway, yeah, bring the price of testing down. Rosewood says, clean the tourist villas. Never got the virus. Thank you, my lovely Rosewood, saying there. Gail Marsden says, we felt so much safer there in Zakynthos last summer than we do here in West Yorkshire. Thank you for that, Gail. I appreciate that. Paul Bruff is watching as well. We're talking yesterday. Again, great catching up with you, buddy, last night. Great chat. And we'll do it again sometime. Debbie Walthamstow is also watching as well. Chick Ballantyne is watching as well. Nikki Christine Slater is watching as well. Oh, hang on a minute. I've lost that. Let me just quickly close that down. Sue Moore is watching. Rita Panchel is watching. Barbara Telfer is watching. Rita Panchel says, good morning. Shane Bowen says, I love Frappe extra strong, Ginge. I love a Frappe. Medrio Magala is the famous quote that I say. Frappe, Medrio Magala. David Lesmore says, morning, Ginge. A lovely day here in Enfield. We felt so much safer. Somebody's replied to that comment. Thank you, my lovely. Ian Booth says, hi, Gail. We live in the hills near Huddersfield with no problems here. but we are lumped in with Dewsbury and Huddersfield for COVID figures, which pees me off. Yeah, I know the feeling. The same as here, because when people were being tested for the virus, if they have an AMCA number, which is like your social security number, and they were tested in Athens and tested positive, the score on the door didn't go into Athens, it went onto our list here because of the AMCA number for the location that person got their AMCA number given to them in Zakynthos, and they moved to Athens. So of course we got the site, we got the score on the door, not Athens. So again, I know what you mean by that. So it paints a false picture of the location and the infection rate. So trust me, it's been happening here as well as happening over in the UK. Andy Watson is watching, Rachel Wood is watching, Anthony Wells over there in Spain is watching as well. I'm not sure how things are over in Spain. Dave Burns over on the Wirral there. Nice to have you tuning in, big buddy. Also, Patsy Ann Dobson says, that's great news. Be great to see the smaller bars opening. He's talking about Margate, by the way. So pleased about that. Morning, Ginge. Good to see you. And my curly perm has gone from our days in Northern Ireland. Yes, we had Mick Hucknall perms when we were in Northern Ireland back in the day. I always remember that. We went to some very seedy hairdressers in Antrim getting our hair done. And I just remember the warrant officer's shouts of, put your berries on, because when you take your berry off, you've got this boing perm come down like Mick Hucknall. Oh, those were the days. Because everybody else was going around looking like an extra out of the Sweeney or out of the Professionals, and we were going around looking like Mick Hucknall. Anyway, I've had another little message from Emma Marku, who says, hi, Ginge, I'm genuinely concerned about our world right now. We are losing our freedom of choice, and this is surely can't be right. I'm certainly not a conspiracy theorist, but over the time, I'm certainly not a conspiracy theorist, but over time, what has been saying is gradually coming true. Emma, I've been saying this all along. People say, oh, conspiracy theory, David Icke, all this sort of stuff. No, there has been a change and shift in the way that we are living our lives that is in the open, and it is for us all to see. But at the same time, we're taking it as being normal. And when you start to delve behind it, it's not normal. Ever since the pandemic started, this kind of shift of control, liberties that we've had, that the government then overturns on the understanding this is only for a short time until we get the situation under control. Then it becomes a point of they don't want to put things back the way they were. Take, for example, the emergency powers that Boris Johnson put into place. They were supposed to only be in place for about 6 weeks. Now they're in place until the end of June, when it has to go back to Parliament to then, you know, reinstate those powers, or those powers go. And at the moment, the way things are looking, that another excuse comes up to keep things in place. Another reason comes up to add to the list of freedoms that you lose, on the grounds that it's to keep us safe. I also look at what's going on with Biden at the moment in America, trying to pull troops out of Afghanistan, something that Trump tried to do years ago. Now, I'm going to give Biden his due. If he does what he says he's going to do and pulls those troops out, the American generals are already saying, oh, but once we pull out, we're going to have world terrorism all over again. Little girls can't go back to school in those countries ever again. And to be honest, they're praying, the American generals, that something will happen that will then make people change their minds about staying. And as you know, at the moment, after nearly over 20 years in Afghanistan, almost, what has been achieved? Really nothing. But what has been spent? Trillions, absolutely trillions. And they're no closer to solving the crisis than what the Russians were in their day. And in fact, if anything, they've created a bigger global problem, and it's harder to sort it out, and people's lives have been wasted for basically nothing. So again, yeah, there are things going on, and we'll wait and see what happens. Anyway, Mick Richards is watching as well. Ian Booth says local elections in May. That's a good point. Thank you for that, Boothie. So if you do write to your MP about whatever it is issue may have with vaccinations or with help that you might require, just remind them in your letter, we have local elections in May and I will not vote for you, or I will reserve my judgment as to whether I re-vote for you or not. So thank you for that. Dave Linsmore says, well said, Ginge, Keir Starmer is a disgrace. In fact, I do remember getting a heads up that Keir Starmer was going to resign from the Labour Party as leader, and for some reason it didn't happen. I do know some people were getting in touch saying, when's Keir Starmer supposedly stepping down? They were going to try and hoist him out anyway, because I always think there's certain people in his cabinet, in his shadow cabinet that he's got, who should not be there. One of them, I'll call her out now, Diane Abbott. Why the hell she is still a shadow cabinet minister, I just do not know. And when you consider that she's the Home Secretary shadow cabinet minister, that's even more worrying in itself. And the problem with Diane Abbott, you cannot have a discussion with her about anything. As soon as she feels the pressure of her argument being kind of countermanded, the first thing she will pull out is the race card and say, is it because I'm black you're saying this? No, it's not because of that. It's because you're doing a rubbish job. I don't care what colour you are, as long as you do a good job. And again, remember, she's lined her pockets as well. She's done very nicely. I'm surprised people actually vote for her, even in her communities. I cannot see what they see in her. Basically, because as a shadow cabinet Home Secretary, God Almighty, she's an absolute disgrace. But that's by the way. Matt Williams is watching as well. Tracy Wigley is watching. Julie White is watching. Exactly why? Thank you for that, Julie. Why? That is the in question as well. Kevin Bell is watching as well. Julie White says. There's a potion, there's a potion up already if they get, there's a petition. Oh, it's the way you spell. Oh, I do apologise. It should be, there's a petition up already. If they get 10,000 signatures, it goes to Parliament, going around this in the UK. This is obviously about vaccinations. I'm not sure if she might be mentioning about the NHS, being told they have to have the vaccination whether they want it or not, or workers. At the moment, I do know that went to court and they were told they didn't have to be forcibly vaccinated. However, when it becomes renewal of contracts, because everybody seems to be these days are under contracts and they have to be renewed every couple of years or every 6 months or whatever, it might be a clause in the contract that can go in, and that will be their way of getting you to have it or not have it or lose your job. So again, we'll wait and see what that is about as well. Steve Simpson is watching as well. Sid James, he's tuning in. Oh, bless her. She says, Julie says, oh, petition, I mean test prices. Okay, cheers, my darling. Yes, great. If there's a petition about test prices, stick it online where people can see it so people can sign it as well. Anthony Wells, who lives in Spain at the moment, good friend of mine, Rap Reg buddy, Mick Hucknall duo group. He says, in Spain, I've been in the hills above Malaga. Our village and surrounding areas are COVID free. If the major towns like Malaga and Madrid, etc., that baby reasonable high rates. Province of maybe have reasonably high rates. Vaccination is slow. They're only doing 70 and 80 plus at the moment, and the AstraZeneca is for the 60s to 69. So even in Spain, they're slowly vaccinating, and so Greece just looks even more attractive as a place to come. And anyway, Julie White says no about PCR tests to travel. Thank you for that, Julie. I understood that after seeing the rest of your comments. The petition is about that. Right, that's it from me. I'm sorry if I babbled and burbled on. I'm really keeping my ear close to the ground about what's going on at the moment. As you can obviously see, I'm not a happy bunny at the moment in regards what I see now is a slippery slope. And the worst thing about this is the way that the Greek government will operate, and the way the British government will operate as well. They will put the onus on the business owner. They will make it difficult. At the moment, business owners here have to be checking whether they work in the retail, in a shop, or whether they have a stand-up coffee place where they're still doing takeaway or whatever, that they have to check that their employees doing the self-testing and they have tested negative before they can go back to work. And this week is a free week of grace where they're getting used to the system that we have now implemented. But the point is this: as of next Monday, this is when businesses will start to get fined and individuals will start to get fined if they're not complying to the self-testing. So it's going to be interesting how much of a bugger about they're going to place on businesses, so that in the end, as a business owner, it's easier for me to employ somebody who's had the test than somebody who hasn't had the test. And if you're fine by that, all right, all well and good. But if not, if you are a business owner yourself who doesn't want to be vaccinated, and you are prepared to basically check everybody once a week to make sure that they're safe and they've done the paper, then obviously that is your choice. But it's going to be interesting to see how they enforce these spot checks, or whether they're banking on once you're vaccinated, that's it, we don't care anymore. We're only interested now on the unvaccinated people, and they're basically just going to be a nuisance because we've got to go checking them all the time. But once they've had the vaccination, we can leave them alone. And when you think about it, well, wasn't that what the point of the vaccination was in the first place? Was to vaccinate people so you wouldn't have to test them to see if they still had the virus. And then that has kind of gone out of the window, especially in the UK, where even though you've had the vaccination, they're now saying, oh, we still have to test you. But then again, at the same time, you're not being allowed to travel, you're not being allowed to go out anywhere, you're not being allowed to open your bar, even though you've had the flipping test. And you can't leave the country. And supposedly, you're safe. But you still have to test. So, does the vaccine work or not? And remember, the vaccine is not to cure you of the virus. It's to make it more controllable if you catch it, so it gives you a bit more resilience towards it. So I'd rather take my chances with my old body and nature, and I'll take my chances rather than sticking something in my arm that may affect me, may not affect me. But at the end of the day, it should be my choice that I can have it, not blackmailed or steamrolled into having it because they want you to conform. And that is the way that I feel. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your support. I will see what happens. And again, put your comments down below and just see what other people's feelings are on this. And thank you for those people who've made their comments known. It's really nice to see. And I think a lot of people really are in the camp of, I don't mind having a vaccine as long as it's my choice. But when you're telling me to have it, I don't want it. I really don't want it. Not because, why? At the end of the day, we know so much money is being made out of this by pharmaceutical companies, people who've been basically given tenders, and now the corruption in the UK is coming to light. Your man, former Prime Minister Cameron, with his £60 million of shares that he was going to lose because the company that he had invested in, who are also supplying PPE to the UK, their shares were going down, and they were basically paying for certain stuff through a complicated system of payment. He then started to exert his influence as a former Prime Minister in asking Boris to put that company into one of its bailout list people to receive economic assistance. So basically his shares didn't devalue. And I think somebody told me Boris didn't do it, and I think his shares went down. But the point is this, it's the fact that he's asking, the same as Tony Blair. Look how much money he's made since he left Parliament. Look at the mess he created with Afghanistan and Iraq. and he was the big man that wanted the national ID scheme that got turned down. He was the one who wanted to really be in charge of the EU, but never got the job because he was sent to sort the mess out in the Middle East that he created, but he's never once apologised for what's gone on. He has got blood on his hands from families who lost loved ones during that conflict for no reason, on trumped up case of weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. Why? Because he was in hot to the Americans. And yeah, anyway, I'm going off track there. But anyway, I'll keep my ear to the ground. You take care, and I'll catch you later. Ta-ra.